Look at you.
Moving
Good
furniture,
morning.
shoving things around. Wait, is it like that?
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you can see, we've got our festive July lights burning. And this is called This Is Now Bridge to a Better World. And I am Theresa.
And I'm Ani.
And
hey, Theresa, if I move down here, would you move down here with me?
Yeah.
It's just the lighting. It's the lighting. It's the framing.
We should do that while we're talking.
Well, just
sort of like Muppets.
I love the Muppets.
Yeah,
that was one of our early courting rituals. This is the preliminary talk to get us all sort of, how do we say, revved up for the rest of the show.
But speaking,
we
join cable for only $5.
we met pledge pitching, and suddenly we both became Muppets and started pitching as Kermit and Miss Piggy, and then we realized we may be soul. That was what I realized. I was like, "You're my soulmate." Oh. You went into Muppet voice without even prompting. That's what I thought. I guess so.
I suppose it's true, Miss Piggy.
Anyway, good morning. We are so happy to see you. We are so happy to see you this morning. And this is a special morning. We have some headlines. Theresa has some headlines.
Not much, but we really want your comments because we're going to go at it.
And that debate that's been raging in the Democratic Party, in the news punditry, in the rest of in
the political mind of George Clooney.
Anything that we have tuned into, that debate that has continued since it actually happened. The presidential debate has now led into the debate over whether we continue to support a Biden-Harris ticket in the Democratic, ticket in the election, or if in fact all the signs are there and we need to immediately shift something up. And there's that question has been just raging like a little wildfire through the communities.
Yeah, before we get into that,
and I just want to say that our house is not an exception to that.
Here's a pencil to twiddle.
Oh yeah, read what that pencil says.
This pencil says cancers have all the feels.
That's right, we do. And I will be
because I bought this for you.
Yes, you did. So that's my overview of the show is that we will in fact engage in the constant debate in our house again this morning for your viewing pleasure.
Well, in Kim Stanley Robinson's dystopia, his very frightening dystopia about the very near future,
called Ministry for the Future,
he begins with a scenario in which a man is driven mad by being the sole survivor of a heat disaster in India. And he posits a village where people just, for various reasons, especially just being too poor to have cars, everyone can't leave town and power fails. And they can't, it's like, 130 degrees and they just can't, find any relief. In the scenario, he puts up an air conditioner and someone steals it. And so they all go down to the lake, but the lake's been heating up. And so he has a secret thermos. Well, I'm giving away. Anyway, he's the sole survivor. He goes mad and drives the plot. And so
the sole survivor out of tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, so that's pretty dramatic. And nothing like that has happened yet. But something that kind of points that direction has happened in Houston, where Hurricane Beryl, which was Tropical Storm Beryl, I think by the time it hits the sands off Galveston and Padre Island and all that, knocked the power out to a couple of million people in Texas, a lot of people in the Houston area. And of course, in Houston, in Texas generally, we have very, very corrupt, privately owned power companies. Here in Portland, we have corrupt privately owned power company too, and we should have a public utility district, but that's another matter. So the last I had checked yesterday afternoon, I guess, there were at least 1 million people in the Houston metro area who had gone for days and days without power in searing heat in stifling humidity, and they were getting sick, and they were piling into the hospital, and the hospital was using its emergency generators, and people were tracking where the power was on um, by using a map of Whataburger restaurants. Whataburger restaurants are where you can go to get a beef patty that has it's very flat, and it's very large, and it has a lot of shredded lettuce on top of it. This is one of the two things I miss about Texas. And so to figure out where to go to get some gas, for example, because you can't get gas when there's no power to the gas stations, you can't put any gas in your generator unless you can siphon it out of your car or whatever. Important point to remember. You're in earthquake country. They've been tracking where to do that, where to get around by using the Whataburger app, which showed them, it may still be showing them, what parts of town had power. This is pitiful. And I don't want to get too snarky or jokey about it, because it literally is killing dozens of people right now. And it's a sad way to go. And it tends to kill, people my age and up who, lose their power, don't have anyone to turn to, and they just die quietly in their homes. And then they are found a couple of weeks later by the odor, frankly. So that's climate disaster, version X111, I don't know. And it's happening right now, right under our noses. And I'm sad about it. And obviously we need an administration that will give up on subsidies to oil companies and turn it all the way around, seize the oil companies. This literally has to be done. They have trillions of dollars of offshore hidden funds, literally trillions. I keep saying 20 trillion, but that's like a decade-old figure now. There is one hell of a lot of money to be had by seizing the oil companies. Now, of course, oil is going and gas is going to have to be provided. And the second tier of managers are going to have to be kept on to keep that infrastructure in place as we change over. But they're not going to do it just because they think humanity should go on living. They don't give a damn about that. The people who really drive it, as has often been said, have absolutely the best bunkers. They have the solar panels. They don't, it's not in their business model to give a fuck about us, and they don't. I guarantee you they don't. So, that was a flub. I need a neurological exam. So let's talk about the let's talk about the presidency, shall we?
Well, but first, let us actually really look at the state of the world. Okay. In terms of climate devastation that we are watching around us, we are watching the heat wave hit not just a little dome here or a little heat wave there, or it's a little above temperatures there, but really
right across
the entire rather large country, I should say country, not the entire continent.
Right across Turtle Island.
But right across the U.S., in large parts of Mexico, in southern Canada, we have seen really devastating heat waves for the last week or more. And that really should be at one of two headlines, maybe three. I could see three headlines right now that are worth talking about, to the exclusion of most other things. Climate disaster, climate catastrophe, killing people, killing Americans now, as it has been killing folks around the world for a while.
Like over winter. It actually started in winter, and it was killing Patagonians during the Chilean Argentinian winter.
Yes. Yeah.
That was terrifying.
And so, that's one. Two would be the two current wars, the Palestinian genocide, the ongoing Israeli genocidal acts against Palestinians, and the war in Ukraine, where, again, we have seen devastating things happen this week. Third thing should be really Project 2025, the plan to absolutely implement the boot that steps on the face of humanity forever. If you have read Orwell, you know that quote.
Yeah, instantly as shock doctrine. Yep, the worst.
And so these are the three things that we need to be really talking about, to the exclusion of just about anything else, because they are pants on fire level emergencies. But what have we been doing for the last 10 days? We've been talking about the sad performance, the heartbreaking presidential debate. Because, in fact, the person who is supposed to stand between us and Project 2025 didn't really seem like they had it together. And so now we are switching into
Yes, he seemed feeble,
point counterpoint,
feeble and dithering. I agree.
And this is a time when we need somebody to really come out in the most cogent, most empowered, most quick on their feet, sparring, ready to go candidate. We need somebody who, in fact, looks like they can act in emergencies without a script. So, but what we saw, and what we saw was what we saw, and we all know what we saw. What do I want to go from here? I guess I want to preface this by saying, I don't think either of us have ever been big fans of, we've mostly, the both of us have voted third-party tickets our most of our lives.
Angela Davis for president.
Yes. I have been a committed person to. I have a long history, let's just say, of talking about the futility of voting for the lesser evil in a two-party imperialist system that seemed to sort of, play good cop, bad cop against each other a lot.
And I was MC for Portland for Jill Stein in 2016.
Right. So there's some. We got a long history here of not really being known as Democratic loyalists. That said, we have both realized this year in this upcoming election that we are both throwing in firmly behind the Democratic ticket, because the stakes are too high if the, Mango Mussolini, as Trevor Noah used to call him, returns. So with that in the background, I also want to say, with all due credit, that Biden's administration has absolutely surprised me in many good ways. I mean, sure, there's been some of the regular imperialist crap that I absolutely hate in every administration since I've been born, and all those I've read about before me. But in addition to that background noise, he has passed some of the most hard-hitting environmental policies. He has done so much for unions and has said the word union out loud in a positive way. He has gotten downright scrappy when it comes to talking about workers and parts of the economy. So all credit where it is due. He's been a staunch supporter of reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. Cool. We love that about Joe.
He implemented $15 federal minimum wage, and $15 is a base now, and it is raising the economy.
And yet he was struck down. That proposal, that thing that he promised to do and tried to do, was struck down by a hostile Congress,
which he then implemented by executive fiat. So it actually did get through.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
cool. So we have a $15 minimum wage, because I don't think we do.
No, federal employees have $15.
Okay, but he was trying to, so he has done, again, quite a bit like that. So let's go.
Okay, so my point is that we're being manipulated, and I don't think this ever works. I'm going to try to show you that there is a graph here.
It doesn't work.
And the graph I'm looking at is from Media Matters, and Those tall blue poles are how many times Biden has been mentioned in terms of age and mental acuity. Now, from the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the LA Times, and USA Today. In the Washington Post, the number of articles solely focusing on mental acuity for either Trump or for Biden is 22 for Biden and 4 for Trump. Wall Street Journal, 29 against Biden, 1 against Trump. New York Times, 25 against Biden, 2 against Trump. LA Times, 16 against Biden, 4 against, none
0
against Trump. 5 against Biden and 3 in a much more balanced, but still slightly unbalanced USA Today. Oh yeah,
You
have to learn how to move my phone. So the New York Times particularly has been pushing this narrative, and that Biden is incompetent. And my counterpoint is that he's an old man and he's going to flub things, and we shouldn't be focusing on his every syllable, because first we will fool ourselves with confirmation bias, which is exactly what the New York Times wants us to do. And secondly, old brains work this way. They substitute words. In your mind, your meaning is still there, but you flub the word. And a perfect example of that yesterday was where President Biden called Zelensky Putin, and he called Vice President Harris Vice President Trump. And he corrected himself on one, and it doesn't seem like he caught the other one. For me, that's kind of funny, and I'm not worried about it. Because I do that sort of thing. I impersonate a person 20 years older, I think, quite a bit, because you would not believe how much pain medication I am taking. And it really takes some, what they call preconscious loading for me to get through a sentence. I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to type. And so I'm very conscious that what Biden is doing in public isn't out of range for someone his age. And I would also counter that I don't think that the presidency is like a race car where you have to be ready for every sudden turn in the road and conscious and up. It's better that way, but he has a great staff. President Franklin Roosevelt had a great staff and kept the war going on top. And the Americans with the British and the Russians and much of the world did defeat Hitler and Tojo and Mussolini. Largely with Roosevelt's help. He dropped dead during that war. You have to have a good staff, and that's something that Biden mentions when he is asked about when Stephanopoulos did his attack journalism, when he went and talked to Biden and talked about nothing and constantly brought it around to whether Biden was going to allow a new presidential candidate. Biden mentioned his staff, and rightly so, because he is old, and this is how you adjust. So,
right. So I'm going to go ahead and then say,
go ahead.
I think that you're making good points. I don't disagree with them right up until the point that you say he needs to stay in himself personally. He's got a good staff. He's got, Kamala Harris, who in fact is his vice president. Should something untoward happen, should he be unable to continue his duties, she is supposed to be there to fill in for him, right?
And
that's why the vice president is seated. It's not just to give, talks to women's business associations in Central America in an attempt to stop immigration. Which, up until the last 6 months was about the last I heard from Kamala Harris. They have kept her way in the background for this entire administration, and I have not appreciated that much at all. But that is to, untoward or nothing. If Biden was unable to fulfill his duties, if, heaven forfend, he was to pass on before the end of his office, Harris's job is to take over for him And he says that, of course, he believes she's competent to do so. So I am here to say that I get it. His ability to front load what he has to say has been somewhat impaired, perhaps through his advanced years. Certainly, the Biden we've seen at the debate and the Biden we saw at the press conference, to try to put the Biden we saw at the debate, to try to cheer us and let us know that that was just one bad night, failed to do that in my book. Um, if we want to say, yeah, he's had such a great legacy, he's had a good 4 years. We were a capsized ship, and he managed to sort of get us more or less upright when he got there. Thank God he has done that. Now it's time maybe to let him retire with some kind of grace and transition into a Harris administration, because again, she's already there to take over in case he is unable to do so. And I think at this point he is unable to do so. Give him an emeritus title. He can be the senior most absolute advisor. But when it comes to thinking on his feet and saying the right thing at the right time and not the opposite, which, calling Zelensky Putin and calling Harris Trump, that's not just a little flub. You're going for the exact opposite, and I get how that works.
It's nervousness. He knows that he's being looked at. His every syllable is being watched. Well, I would okay. So my counter to that is that this, as I said, this is being driven by the billionaire media. The plutocrat media is driving this, starting with the Sulzberger family at New York Times, and certainly including the right-wing billionaire that now owns CNN and intends to turn it, and is turning it into Fox. The billionaires are acting in bad faith. So whoever is selected will be attacked just as hard by these same billionaires, because they want you to think they want Biden, and they really, really, really need to have Trump to make those, next year's profit schedule. And that's because Trump has brazenly bribed them directly with a huge tax break. They had trillions of dollars worth of tax break. Should we shift this down a bit?
No, you should just hold on to it while I do this.
All right.
No,
I'm holding.
There we go.
So this is pretty good considering she's doing pretty good considering she's working one-armed. Well, anyway, they are going to attack. Whoever's selected, they will attack. In 1968, Lyndon Johnson surprised everyone by announcing he wasn't going to run, and there was a scramble in the Democratic Party, which is, things were different then. Democratic Party was different then. It was racist, for one thing, and that the racist focus switched over the years, actually starting in 1968. But the Convention of 1968, if you look at the Wikipedia article, and I know there's better, but this is handy right now, was held during riots, political turbulence, and mass civil unrest. The secret forces, U.S. secret forces, assassinated Martin Luther King. The CIA, using a Manchurian Candidate-style drug stooge, killed Robert Kennedy. And Kennedy and Eugene McCarthy were running on opposing the Vietnam War. And McCarthy's probably lucky he didn't get killed as well. So there was a very violent, contested election. People were protesting the Vietnam War, and rightly so. Outside the convention, the Mayor Daley with the complicity of the Democratic Party, arranged for the protesters to be stomped. It was hideous. And they came up with, can you even remember? I remember the name Humphrey, the Humphrey Muskie ticket. And that was going to be the Humphrey Eagleton ticket, but it got more confused at the last minute. There's a huge floor fight, and they came up with this, and the press was like, who are these people? And that was a much better press. That was a much more even-handed press. Well, they were destroyed by Nixon, destroyed. And New York Times knows this. And so I am not at all interested in moving Biden out of the way. I think we got to remember it's July. People are panicking. They're really panicking. I'm panicking. The next debate's in September. and the election's not till November. So let's all just take a deep breath. For me, I'm definitely voting blue, however it works out. I will be even more terrified if they try to replace Biden. I think that he will prove his strength by fighting back on this. He intends to be the next president. And I want to say, just watch this. He's going to fight back. He'll keep fighting in his rather pugilistic way. I remember I thought he was going to punch Trump at one point during the debate. I hope he doesn't do anything like that, but he will not let go. And so replacing him means forcing him out. It will be extremely ugly. Let's not go there. I'm riding with Biden.
Riding with Biden. All right.
Riding with Biden.
And I'm going to say, I agree again with most of what you're saying. And I am saying that from my perspective, I don't think he's fit to govern even now, let alone stay on the ticket. And I'm using my own eyes and not reading a whole lot of George Clooney's opinion in, I don't really care what Hollywood stars have to say, even if they met him at a fundraiser they held a couple weeks ago.
That was weird, don't you think? It was like,
well,
hi, George Clooney. Oh, George Clooney. Hey, what do you think, George Clooney? Say you want to run for president? And guess who would want him to run for president? I mean, he is a cipher. He has no ideological flavor. He would simply represent whatever bullshit.
Hi. I'm just going to say, in fact, he's been a huge supporter of Biden, and that was a fundraiser he himself organized for Biden. I'm just going to say, but I don't care, really. That's my point here was I don't care what George Clooney's opinion is, right? I'm using my own perspective. I haven't read the Washington Post's editorials on it because, in fact, I don't subscribe to the Washington Post, so most of those behind a paywall. And, I'm going by my own perception, my own experience of watching this man's comeback news conference yesterday not allay my fears. I watched the first part, which was very scripted, and he did pretty good. And I was like, oh, you know what? I might need to calm the heck down. I might need to just say, whatever we go with, we go on, Joe, we're there. But then the questions and answers started. And then there was a couple places where he just kind of looked like he might have been a little lost on the page and looking to try to figure out what he was doing next. And then there was the whole, calling Vice President Harris Vice President Trump while he was praising her ability to take over in case of emergency. And I'm thinking, Lord, these are problems. These are really large problems. Now, Theresa and I absolutely agree that we would vote for a bowl of Jell-O at this point if that was the Democratic ticket. And that's a fucking scary position for us to be in, right? It's like, okay, all right, what? And because that will allow us the ability to continue fighting against the machine, to continue community organizing and dissident politics as we have our entire lives. It's not like we think the Democratic ticket is going to solve it all.
No.
But,
No,
so,
but I think we're panicking. I mean,
but we are panicking because we're queer, we're political dissidents, and we are on the other side of MAGA. And they are promising a crackdown on all of the above and bloodshed, basically. And so, yeah, we really want the other side to win.
Yeah, we're all agreed on that.
And we will coalesce. But I'm saying maybe the better chance is to actually think about something better than, what we are seeing in front of us now. Because if we make that transition a little bit earlier, we can, in fact, come together. We can unify. We can make the strong arguments and, push forward with strength, as opposed to the conversation that should be about climate change, that should be about the two raging wars, that should be, about the coming fascist takeover of this country, or the attempt to fascistly take over this country. Those should be the dominant headlines. Democrats, the president should be steering the damn narrative. But in
So
fact,
let's not panic. I mean,
but in fact, what we're seeing is the president's we are steering the headlines because the president is looking incompetent at this moment.
I just said panic. You know, Colbert flubs at least once or twice a week. Amy Goodman flubbed this morning. We're not watching her every syllable. We're panicking.
Those are those. You're talking about comedians and journalists who we love and respect, and we're talking about you and I, who we love and respect. We're not the effing president of the United States carrying nuclear codes and needing to like actually be responsive in diplomatic situations under emergent threat. I mean, we remember Reagan. Reagan was not ever really the president, right? He was a figurehead while behind the scenes people did the presidency thing. And he got to sleep through bombings. He took a little nap and, people went on to bomb, was it Lebanon? I can't remember. But, he slept through bombings. He slept through a news conference. Are you saying that Biden's going to get relegated to that? His staff's just going to do all the stuff while Biden naps?
I don't know. I hope not. I remember the Reagan thing. I remember that Nancy Reagan started having a bigger role in public policy along with Reagan and I'm in control here, General, which is his name, Haig.
Oh God!
And the Republicans were fine with that. They're like, whatever, ship of state is right. And now the Republicans are like, Jill Biden might be running the country. And I was thinking, well, that's not so bad. I kind of like her. She's got a sense of humor. She's smart. I didn't elect her, so that's not good.
That's the issue. That is I was waiting for that.
It's nothing compared to this fucking fascist monster on the other side, and that's we need to get around to being able to talk about that. So yeah, it needs to be settled. But let's remember, it's July.
It is July, and again, opposing Trump is eyes on the prize, and I think that probably, I'm just gonna leave it. I'll leave my position with Michael Moore. I think has spoken what I really have felt for the last week or so. Seeing Michael Moore, I think it was yesterday or the day before, give a little interview on an MSNBC show, wherein he said that he believes at this point we're looking at elder abuse. It's like, if your dad was looking that frail and having that many moments where they are unable to perform, but they still wanted to keep going to their job, you would, as loving family, gently dissuade them to, in fact, enjoy their senior years and do something else. And again, I think that to preserve his dignity, his legacy of being so pro-union, such a threat to the uber rich in this last term, to do that justice, to have him as a senior emeritus advisor to a Harris administration. That's where I'll leave it. But again, go with God. The Democrat ticket, come hell or high water.
I rest my case. Let's take it to the jury.
Jane, you ignorant slut. Okay.
You promised.
I promised you. I promised you I would say that. Jane, you ignorant slut. How dare you?
Thanks for the comments, y'all.
So let's talk about what's happening to Roe-wise. We have long planned to do this because we can't really seem to talk about anything else in our house, as I'm sure you might be able to guess. But then I drew these tarot cards, and you can see what they say. Theresa might be white. Okay, so what they say is, first of all three of them were inversed. That generally means that, man, we're in a muddled damn situation without any clarity at all. There is nothing but opposition on all sides, but still we got to do something.
Even when they're inversed, I like seeing the kitty cat cards. I think it was a great idea to use those.
Well, and actually we have the Five of Wands. This card stands for confusion, fighting, infighting, disharmony. But the inversion of this card talks about actually people having a moment of, oh, right. If we cooperate, we're actually going to win. If we stay infighting, if we stay competitive, if we focus on the competition and might making right, most of us lose. And that's the lesson of that card. So I find that fascinating. Cooperation wins the day. And it's definitely a call for cooperation.
Very spirit-like.
Yeah, you just like the message. So then we have Three of Wands, again in verse. Three of Wands talks about needing to pull our focus together to really achieve great goals, to depart from the past and put forth our vision. It's inversed. The inversion talks about not turning our backs on each other, and again, maintaining focus on that goal and the changes that one wants to see, not focusing on differences or discord. And we have the Three of Swords inversed. For traditional tarot knowers, this is the card that usually is depicted with one big heart and three swords piercing it with blood dripping off the bottom.
Keeps.
I know, right? It's a great image. This card talks about sort of that conflict between heart and mind. It talks about disappointment. It can sometimes talk about betrayal. But it's definitely a card of conflict, usually between heart and mind, sometimes around betrayal and breakups, but heart and mind. I mean, really, the pain of breakups is because the heart and mind are usually in conflict. So, inversed, again, it's a card that actually calls for taking some time, doing a little healing, and doing a little soothing of one's feelings. It's a card that calls for forgiveness. It's a card that talks about how carrying anger hurts the self. And so it's a card that seeks, again, forgiveness. And so what we have is cooperation, finding unification and forgiveness as the overarching messages. How does that inform our debate? I could say at the face of it, okay, I'll go with it. Let's try it. I think that might actually sort of be what they're saying, though I don't love it. And it makes me dang nervous. I could also interpret it by saying, well, look at that. They want to cooperate so we can find somebody really fast right now and all cooperate.
That's why I said it seemed like spirit. That's what I took it as.
Yeah. So the point that I will be taking away from this is the infighting has to stop very soon. Whatever decision is at sort of, with us, we have to stop the infighting, because that is, in fact, what's going to put 45 back in.
Yeah, and I think you would agree with me that the public needs to be able to separate the plutocrat push between what they really want.
I'm not, see, this is, again, we're going to get back into the debate. I don't see this as, sure, the plutocrats want it too. They, of course, okay, sure.
It's a coincidence.
Michael Moore is easily duped by plutocrats. I'm easily duped by plutocrats.
Not easily duped. I'm saying.
I'm just saying.
We need to separate. Look who's doing it, why they're doing it, and and then make your decision. And it doesn't mean that, as you say, it has to be different from what they're recommending.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
It can't be as they're.
We are going to right back to it.
It can't be because or as they're recommending. I think you would agree with that. The New York Times? Are you serious? They're Judith Millering us. They're
sorry, you are
us.
just about accusing me of being duped by the New York Times.
No.
Oh, okay, good.
No, I'm saying we have to separate their message.
Already done.
From what we want. Okay. All right.
All right. So you have been watching our very first point counterpoint in front of other people. Well, that's not true. If anyone's ever spent the day with us, you'll find this happens actually frequently. But we thought we'd bring it to you, dear viewers, this morning. Well, we really do need to have this moment figured out. We need, again, to cooperate in doing so. We cannot be infighting like we have been for the last week. It's a terrifying moment to be on the downside of power. As a couple of queers, as gender queers, as anarchists and commies, as those that want the respect of human rights and civil rights, there's not been a more perilous moment in my personal life. And I get to turn 58 next week.
Yeah, when you decode their dog whistles, you can actually see them on pickup trucks, and they're really the MAGA 2025 secret agenda, but not secret enough agenda, really is a bloody purge of queers.
So, and so many other things. Remember that climate change that we're talking about is actually raging and killing people. One of the points of Project 2025 and the return of 45 is to actually legislate those words out of our vocabulary so we can actually focus on climate change, because we can't talk about climate change in official policy. That is unthinkable. It reminds me of being a student of the Russian language. And when I was in college and I was trying to write my paper, which was to introduce myself and talk about what I did on campus, well, I ran the Lesbian Alliance. And I couldn't find the word for lesbian. I went to my professor, my second year of Russian, for my oral composition final. And I said, I can't believe that I have no idea what the word for lesbian is. And he said, that's because they don't have one. Lesbians don't exist in Russia. If you don't have a word for it, it can't exist. And that is really one of the biggest dangers of the return of 45 and the ongoingness of not stopping Project 2025, because we have to talk about climate change. It's an existential crisis. It's going to kill us whether we acknowledge it or not, if we don't do everything we can to mitigate it, and mitigate it now. So there are many reasons to freak out, but freaking out is not going to help us. Stay grounded, stay connected. Let's arrive at a really good answer together. Once that answer is given, let us please cooperate and stop the attempt to return 45 to office to finish the job of, creating the boot that steps on our face forever. And with that, please do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We love you. Please take care.
And I love you, and I love your minds. Yes, I do. And
that is so good.
So our love goes out to you and to all the ships at sea.
Cheery bye.
Bye-bye. Can I see your mind?
You want to eat my